Good. So I'm going to welcome everybody. I'm Kim Scheintel. I'm president of the Jewish Genealogical Society of Southwest Florida. And I can see by the names under your faces, we've got a really good group here. I would say about half of us are members of the JGS, and about half of you are so interested in the Alliance Colony that you came to join us today. We've got scholars, we've got rabbis, we've got doctors, and we got people who don't know too much here, but we're going to all learn together. But the important thing that I wanted to stress to all of you is the importance of spreading the word of genealogy. And I'll just give you two quick examples. I have a friend, Lois. I don't know that she was very interested in genealogy, but I would sometimes maybe even bore her about all the things that I was doing with my genealogy, that I even got her interested in genealogy. And she came to my house one afternoon and we worked on the computer, and I think I got her hooked on genealogy. And then she started telling me about the Alliance Colony, which I knew nothing about. And it's because of what she told me about the Alliance Colony that I wanted to have the Levin speak with us today. And then I was at my temple one time for a service. And after the service, I went to the Oneg and I was talking to my friend Emily Weil, and I wanted her to get hooked on genealogy. So I started telling her about all the upcoming programs that we had coming up in February and March and April. And Emily's just kind of listening, oh. But when I mentioned Alliance Colony, all of a sudden she says, wow, that one sounds good. I want to come to that one. And I know my sister would want to come to that one too. We've got a connection to the Alliance Colony. So those are just two examples of why you should spread the word of genealogy. And it shows you why we have the program today, because I spread the word of genealogy. So my advice to you is to talk about the interest in genealogy to others. So thank you for coming today. And now I would like to call on Howard Finkel, our program chair.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome everyone. I will mention before I introduce our presenters that this is our last program of the season. Our next program will begin our 24-25 season on November 17th, 2024. The programs for that season will be published in the fall. If you have any suggestions, please send them to me at hgfinkel, Finkel, @gmail.com, or to Kim at Clapschein, Klapschein, @AOL.com. Regarding today's presenters, William was born on a farm and raised in Vineland, New Jersey, where his family have lived since emigrating from Russia and forming the Alliance Colony in 1882. Levin is an animator, composer, and was a writer for Shalom Sesame. Known for his edgy and innovative work and his ability to create synergies in the Jewish community, much like his great-grandfather, Alliance Colony leader Moses Bayuk, Levin is returning to his roots by creating the Alliance Community Reboot. His wife and partner to William, Malya, is a lawyer admitted to the New York and New Jersey bars. Malya is assistant director and general counsel at the Weinberg Center for Elder Justice, the nation's first elder abuse shelter, and serves on the executive committee of the New York State Bar Association Elder Law Section. Malya previously worked in the field of Jewish education for 4 years. Malya used her legal, educational, and community organization abilities to help build Alliance Community Reboot. William and Malya, you're on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Howard, for that introduction. I guess you could say I'm the brains and you're the brawn.
Yeah, that's
the good look.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Those credentials are fun to listen to. Thank you for having us. I'm William, my wife Malya. Malya, you want to tell what your name means? Because it's different from Malya, which is the daughter of the former President Obama.
Oh yes. My name's Malya. So well, it was my great grandmother's name, and my father's father's mother, and I'm told by my father, Arthur Kurzweil, who's here, who's quite the genealogical authority, I would say, that it is a Yiddish diminutive of Malka, which is queen, so it means little princess. So that's me. And I embrace that moniker, as do I embrace my genealogical royalty yichus that I have. So glad to be here. And maybe we should start by sharing our presentation.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm wearing this kippah today because tomorrow begins Pesach, and we just had a discussion about kitniot, which I found very interesting. I'm going to share screen, go to our slideshow, share, and I think everyone might see that. And let's just see if this works. Yes, it does. Okay. So that's we're calling this. Oh, by the way, we've done talks like this before, but never for a genealogy audience. We're not genealogists. We'll get to that second, but we do have some understanding of what it is. So we will pepper this discussion with anecdotes of genealogy that we hope you will appreciate. Our presentation we call From Alliance Colony to Alliance Community Reboot. And just something I find interesting about this is that we originally named our organization Alliance Colony Reboot because we thought we were rebooting the Alliance Colony, but we were told by many academics and authorities and potential partners and sponsors that these days the word colony is very triggering, and I guess we agree. There's a connotation of colonial settlement which is negative, and we were cautioned to not use that name. So we've officially changed our organization and mission to be more community oriented, and we are the Alliance Community Reboot. So there you have it, and it gets very confusing sometimes. But what is the Alliance Colony? Well, we very simply know it as the first Jewish agricultural society, or the first Jewish farm that was established in America in the year 1882 by around 43 Jewish families who emigrated from Russia. They abandoned their trades as professionals and intellects and came to South New Jersey, of all places, funded by the Baron de Hirsch, who was a philanthropist, who was the equivalent of a multi-billionaire at the time, who subsidized and financed multiple Jewish communities, agricultural communities, specifically forming mostly along the east coast of the Americas, including in South America. We get some flack when we say we're the first Jewish farm, because there were others who tried but didn't actually make it past maybe even a year, and at most not even like the Alliance Colony did, at least a generation where there were the sons and daughters also became farmers. So in that regard, we're usually, from where I'm descended, known as the first. I'm descended, so
this is a photo of us. This is the two of us, and the backdrop is the Moses Bay homestead, the home of William's great-great-grandfather, which is still standing, but as you can see, is in quite a bit of disrepair. We'll get to the house a bit in a minute, but we like this photo because I think it sort of encapsulates the vibe that we hope to share with you in the next little bit of our presentation, which is really a personal view of what this what this family history, how we've learned it, what it's meant to us, and how it serves as the backdrop of our life today and of the work that we're trying to do through our organization and at this site today. So that's why we sort of used it as the title slide.
Well said. And we did say we're not genealogists, but we're going to give you a little hint or a tip. If you want a real fully focused genealogy study of the Alliance Colony, our friend Jarrett Ross, and fellow Alliance Colony 5th generation descendant, as I am, is the man to go to. Write it down, folks. And
he's the genie vlogger on YouTube.
He's a professional genealogist. We've seen him go from being a hobbyist to now being one of the curators of content at the genealogy service website called Genie. And he has a very successful YouTube channel with several tens coming on 100,000 subscribers for his very interesting content.
So that's our caveat, is that that's not what our presentation is. Our presentation is really going to be a personal look into our family and the work that we're doing, kind of sort of coming from that.
Yeah, and he's in front of my grandparents' home. We'll get to that later. So there's our names, and there we are on the farm. We kind of chuckle to ourselves every time we say the farm, because we don't run the farm. That's a disclosure. We have some farm projects, but we aren't farmers. But you are wearing a hat.
I'm wearing a farmer's hat. You know, we like to look that way. They like to dress the part, and I mean, you know, this is sort of a constant debate that we have. Is sort of like, you know, did our ancestors, at what point did they consider themselves farmers, and like what makes a person a farmer, I guess. So you can be the judge of that as we sort of share with you what we're doing and how we're doing it.
So this is a brief, I changed the slide to say a brief personal history of Alliance. And this is a small map of South New Jersey, covering some of Cumberland and Salem counties. I grew up in both of those counties. They're just 5 minutes from each other's borders. And that's where the Alliance Colony is. I have some better maps of it coming up. So we start with this quote. And I'm going to read it in the voice of someone who's familiar to me with, I'm going to try to do a South Jersey, Philadelphia accent, but it doesn't work. The story.
It's good. It's going to be good.
The story now to be told concerns Jewish people who settled in the land of Russia and what happened to them in the late 1880s. It is the story of a group of 43 Jewish families who left Russia and eventually found their way to southern New Jersey to found a little farm settlement, which became known as Alliance, the first all-Jewish farm settlement in the United States. And that was by my grandfather on my father's side, Judge I. Harry Levin. He was regarded as the official historian for the Alliance Colony, and he was also the a chairperson and president of the Vineland Antiquarian and Historical Society for many years. And a lot of what I've learned about the Alliance Colony comes from having listened to my grandfather. I mentioned earlier that and we're going to kind of breeze through this. I've told sometimes we dwell on this too long, but the Baron de Hirsch, here's an old photograph, I guess, a tintype of him. He is the founder of the Jewish Colonization Association. He was the philanthropist who got everything kickstarted. He had a whole team of patrons working for him, mostly wealthy German Jewish business people who were in tobacco industry and other things. They were pursuers of the gold rush in 1849, and if that didn't work out, they started settling colonies of Jews.
Also had a most impressive mustache I've ever seen.
Yeah, he was cool. At one point, I will admit, as we were researching, I thought my middle name, William Hirsch Levin, came as a tribute to Baron de Hirsch, and then I was told by another fellow descendant that no, Hirsch is just a common name. It means deer. It's the German translation of deer, and that makes sense. My Hebrew name is Dov Tzvi. Tzvi is also deer. So I thought felt foolish because we gave a few presentations, and I said I was a tribute to the Baron de Hirsch.
No,
I don't think it was.
It could have been.
Here's a map that I found, and the reason I changed this map recently, I found this map in an abandoned house in the Alliance Colony, and it was in a trunk, a steamer trunk, and this map is from 1898, and it is exactly the reason the Alliance Colony is where it is, because this is the Pennsylvania Railroad. And this shows the lines going from Philadelphia all the way to Atlantic City. And then right in the middle, you can't really see it's written, but it says Philadelphia. And then it also says Vineland, and it says, it might say Norma in there. But the reason they settled in the exact location they did is there was a train station that would allow these new farmers to pack their produce and send it to Philadelphia and then beyond to New York City. So it was an industrial decision to settle there, and the soil was good. So this is a real map from that time that is in my possession. This is a photo of it. My direct descendants from the Alliance Colony is my great-great-grandfather, Moses Bayek. He was known as a founder of the colony. As I've done more research on Moses, I learned that he was really a liaison between the wealthy patrons who were financing the distribution of land to the original and then following settlers. He was negotiating between them and the settlers. So he was a go-between. And I found a shoebox in my grandfather's study full of letters that he received from not the Baron de Hirsch, but from his main guy, Leopold Gerschel. Gerschel is the name of the avenue our house is on.
And actually, all the streets in the immediate area are named, have all Jewish names. It's interesting because it's sort of this rural area, and then all of a sudden there's Gerschel Avenue, there's Schiff Avenue, there's Isaacs, there's Henry, and they were all wealthy German Jews who had come sort of 35 years or so before these colonists, and were now the philanthropists who, beyond the Baron de Hirsch's original sort of gift, were supporting this colony.
Moses' son-in-law was my great-grandfather, William Hirsch Levin, who was I think the first for his entire life, the first person in my family for their entire life who was a farmer, I guess, by familiarity, who was born into it and lived his life as a farmer. The little boy there is my dad, and the little girl is my aunt, Barry and Marcia. I am named for William Hirsch Levin. That's not us. I don't think it is. No. Yeah, I'm on Do Not Disturb. If you heard a phone ringing, that was not us. After William Hirsch Levin, my great-grandfather, came the judge Israel Harry Levin, who I mentioned. He was known as the marrying judge. I took this newspaper clipping. He was known for performing civil ceremonies. Some of them were interfaith marriages. He was pretty liberal-minded and well-liked by the community. And he was known as the historian of this Alliance colony. He had the most interest of any of my family I've met in the history of the colony.
It's on his tombstone, actually.
Yeah, it's written on his. It's engraved on his memorial stone in the Alliance Cemetery, which goes all the way back to the settlers. And we'll show you some photos from there later. We were pleased. This is some footage. Our friend and fellow descendant of the neighboring colony, Brotmanville. It's kind of like the Simpsons have Springfield and they have their Shelbyville. We have our Brotmanville, which was found Brotmanville. But I think Rich is here, and Rich is a direct descendant, great-grandson, I believe, of the founder of Abraham Brotman, the founder of Brotmanville, Abraham Brotman. Can you tell them the little story about that? I don't think it's coming up here. Or
the story about
Brotman.
It's after
Oh,
that.
okay,
It's after
yeah.
this.
So this footage was recorded by Rich Brotman, and I want to play it for you. It's very quick.
Yeah.
Where my house is now is part of the Moses Bayou property. You know how they got to sign the property, the Alliance settlers? It was all surveyed. The whole Alliance colony was surveyed. Incidentally, Norma also was one big farm owned by people in Millville, I believe. I can't remember the name offhand. It was all surveyed off, and then the parcels that were surveyed was about between 13.5 to 15 acres, the farm part I'm talking about. Now, Norma was surveyed off like Brotmanville into lots, 50 by 150-foot lots for housing. But I'm talking the farm parcels were approximately 15 acres, between 13.5 and 15 acres. Now, those parcels on the map, when it was surveyed, were given numbers, 1, 2, 3, so forth. The numbers were then put into a hat, as we say, and then the people, the refugees in those days, they drew numbers. If they drew number 2, whatever was number 2 on the map, that was to be their farm land, their 15 acres. And it was up to them then to clear the land, to pull out the stumps, chop down the trees, and to cultivate it and to plant these crops and so forth. And then eventually they built homes, two-room houses, one room downstairs, one room upstairs. That was the original house. I told you there are 3 left in the Alliance colony there. That's how they got their land. They paid for it. They paid I think it was $130. Huh? Oh yeah. They gave back a mortgage for the full price of the land. They had no money.
I like that clip. That's the accent, the South Jersey Philly accent I was trying to
I think you did a good job.
thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's why I just had my grandfather say it for me. And so Rich Brotman recorded that for a documentary he produced in the 1980s. I forget exactly which year, but I was only a little boy when it was produced. And Rich, I think, was 19 years old when he produced it with like video camera back then. And the name of it was a new
First chapter
in a new book.
And it's all about the it's great, first of all, and it's all about it's interviews with a number of people like William's grandfather, sort of old timers who remember the older history, and it also videos a huge reunion that they had in the early 80s at the site of the colony where descendants from all over came to gather. And it's also just like an interesting insight into that era and that gathering. But Rich is here with us, and he's part of our new community and has come down and participated in our events many times over the years and shared all that raw footage that he had from William's grandfather. So it's like really a treasure trove of detail. And that was also William's grandmother like piping in off the screen, which is just like a cute to see, a little dynamic there.
And what's Rich doing now? Rich is in a band called the Sound Dogs here in the Lower East Side. And he produced, or he conceived of and helped write a play called Bliss Street, which is about a music movement here in New York City in the 1980s, right?
So he's doing cool stuff.
Yeah. The lots that my grandfather mentioned, here's a map I found of them when we were doing some surveying for the synagogue there. And you can see, there's a name Charles Hughes on there. His grandson is now the current zoning officer for Pittsgrove Township, where the Alliance Colony was located. And I sent him this map, and he's like, wow, what's up with those lots? They're so small and narrow. And I believe this, and he said they wouldn't be legal today. And I believe this was called the barracks. In the first year that the Alliance Colony settlers came, they lived in like those little tents, and they were the very small lots. And so here's an actual map from the year 1888. That was the first part of the presentation, which is the Alliance Colony. There was a second wave of Jews who emigrated to South New Jersey, famously known for their poultry and egg industry. They were mostly survivors of the Holocaust, including my own family, my maternal side, my mom's side of the family, the Steinwurzels. We couldn't go without a tribute to my other half of the family. Those are my grandparents, Laser and Paula Steinwurzel, and my uncle Sam, may his memory be a blessing, and my mom, the little girl in the middle, Sonia Steinwurzel, who's here with us today. Was there anything else that we were gonna?
Well, you were gonna
Oh yeah, there's an
yeah.
interesting story. This is a genealogy's dream. I dream of genealogy.
There you go.
I'm sure people have said that, but I just
Maybe
came
not.
up with it now.
Maybe not. I like it.
In around 1998, my mom was contacted by a woman in England named Ida, and she professed to be first cousins with my bubby, who's there on the left, Paula Steinwurzel. They got to know each other. They communicated over the phone, talked, never met.
They had moved to England before the war, and they believed that their whole family had been murdered. Ida got involved in genealogy and started tracing her family and found that a branch of them, William's mom's family, had made it to America and survived. And then
so Malya and I, when we shortly after we got married, went to visit Ida. It was not it was my second time, but your first time meeting them. Here we are all meeting, and when we revealed that your name was Malya Kurzweil, formerly, Ida said, "Wow, I love that name."
she was like, I love Arthur Kurzweil and his book. And I was like, that's my dad. And she was like, what? That's the book that taught me how to do my genealogy research that led me to find your family. And we were like, we have to call my dad right now. And so we called him and they had a whole conversation, as you genealogists do, very excitedly. And, it was just a very sweet moment of us coming together.
Agreed. Moving on. So once these two waves merged, I'm a product of both the 1882 wave and the 1951 wave. My father decided he wanted to sell the farmland. Jumping ahead, I don't blame him, but we own it now. But and this is a sign, very symbolic. Like, this is a 26-acre field at the corner of Schiff and Gershel Avenues in South New Jersey. And my dad, I remember, had this sign for a long time. He had worked with a community in Lakewood, New Jersey, a religious community who had interest in making a development there. I think these days there's people don't want farmland developed to be housing. I fully understand. I think there could be happy mediums. There's eco villages that use some of the farmland as farming, others as housing. We have better techniques these days for concentrating all your farming into one small area instead of broadcasting it all out like taking 26 acres. Maybe you can make more money and more food doing it all in 5 acres. That's for another topic. We've learned a lot about this. But anyway, my dad never was able to sell it. There was a lot of dispute in my own family about who to sell it to, how much to sell it for. And so sadly, by the time my dad died, we were sort of stuck part inheriting it. And we were at a crossroad in our own lives deciding what we were going to do. And we saw this as an opportunity that perhaps we should settle the matter now and buy out.
Well, here, let's go on.
Oh, yeah.
So William grew up with his as I've heard, grew up with this being, his grandfather, like you saw in his office, lived right there in the middle of the Alliance colony, right across from that big field where you just saw the for sale sign. So William grew up near the farm, but I don't think really saw it as something that was going to be relevant into his adult life. Moved to Brooklyn, where we met. That's me coming back to visit the farmland. And on our first date, William was, trying to show off and said, I'm a descendant of the first Jewish farm colony in America.
Mm-hmm.
To which I was like, there's Jewish farms? I thought all Jews came to the city and worked in factories on the Lower East Side like mine did. And he said no. And I said, well, let's get married and you'll show it to me. And that wasn't exactly what I said, but shortly thereafter. So then as we met and wound up getting married, I would go down and visit William's parents, and he would take me driving a few minutes, away to that street in that area where that you saw on the map to see this land. And he would sort of very proudly show it to me, and he would say, we still own this, but it felt mysterious. Like, it wasn't so relevant to the present. Like, we saw this field of corn. We would kind of walk around the edges of it. We knew it was leased to some farmer who planted this corn. You can go move on to the next slide. And then we would see.
Isn't that a punchline?
Oh, we can use it as a punchline. I thought we decided not to.
Oh, okay. The old punchline was, where are they all now? And then I would go to this frame and they're all here in the Alliance Cemetery. But
right.
Please continue.
Okay. I mean, yes. We would, and then right across from that field that you just saw was the Alliance Cemetery, which is a beautiful old cemetery. It has, all the original settlers, founders are interred there. And then moving forward, there's a beautiful Holocaust memorial there. So we would see that. You can see here the engraving on the entrance is in memory of the first colonists who migrated from Russia to the woodlands of South Jersey. and on May 9th, 1882, founded Alliance, the first Jewish farm colony in the United States. So they're, really, embracing and proud of this. So we would come by here. We would drive by this shul, this synagogue, which
Right across the street from my grandparents' home and great-grandparents' great-great-grandparents' home, and next to my great-grandparents' home.
right. So it's
Great.
all in the same.
That's
It was
great.
great. It was pretty great. And it looked great. I mean, it looked beautiful and well maintained. And there was this sign outside that said services last Friday of the month. We were like, there can't still be services here. And who keeps this shul so nice? And is it nice inside? And how do we get in? And it was just sort of like, it was so close, but yet it felt so mysterious and far away at the same time. And then, well, this is that's our daughter so this is a few years. This picture was taken a couple of years later, but this is like that same Moses Bay house, looking somewhat dilapidated, where William's great-great-grandfather lived. And again, this is all in that same intersection.
By the way, those are grapevines growing on that fence. They grow wild everywhere. Hence, the greater area of Vineland, New Jersey. It's for these grapes. A lot of people don't know Thomas Welch of Welch's Grape Juice got his start here in Vineland, in the greater area of Vineland, to make non-alcoholic grape juice.
Right.
It was known as back then.
Right.
This gives you a little layout of what property and land we're talking about. In the middle, to the left of the sunset, is the synagogue. Under the sunset is the big field I showed you that was for sale. All the way to the left is my grandparents' home. That dilapidated house is my great-great-grandparents' home. And this is where we go when where we will be heading out in just a couple hours to celebrate Passover with the community that we are helping to kickstart.
So we would talk about this history as interesting history, but like I said, it didn't seem so relevant to what we were doing in Brooklyn. We were living very urban lives. And then my father invited us, and like William said, we were sort of at this crossroads where family was pushing us to sell the land. We didn't really know exactly how we would go about that or what would be best. And we had no familiarity with selling anything. Like we live in like a little rental apartment in Brooklyn. So we were just sort of out of our depth, didn't know what to do. And then my father invited us to come to the Isabella Friedman Jewish Retreat Center to celebrate Sukkot with him and his wife. And we were invited to go there. And it was our first time ever going there. It's this nice Jewish retreat center in beautiful Connecticut, Berkshires. And when we got there, we discovered that they also have operating there a working farm, and they have farm internships, and they have young. And what we were surprised to see was young people who were super jazzed about working on a farm and learning about growing your own food and celebrating Jewish holidays in the shadow of real field, and having harvest festivals and metaphors about farming take on new sort of life and relevance and reality in the context of actually being engaged with farm and food and where it comes from. And we were and they were talking to us about all these other Jewish farms, and they were like, yeah, this is a whole, we came to understand that there's a whole movement of modern Jewish farms, and people are excited about it. And we were sort of saying, and William,
we decided we should be one of the exits on the revolving door of programming that they offer. Oh, I said, it's too bad. Yeah, I forgot. I said, it's too bad we're selling the farmland.
Because we own the first Jewish farm in America. It's too bad we're selling it.
And then in the lower right corner is a picture of Malya and her father, my father-in-law, Arthur Kurzweil, and our first son, Sammy. And Arthur asked simply, well, do you have to sell the farm? And we had never thought of it that way. I had never.
Yeah, we was just taking it as a given, like, of course we're selling it. And then that just kicked
everything
us.
I said earlier prematurely, then we said all that. I forgot.
No, and then we started dreaming from there. What if instead of selling it, the answer is to embrace it and embrace this history and figure out how it can be relevant, and we can connect with this modern Jewish farm movement, and we can be another one of these farms that's being talked about here. We could be another one of these communities that these young people are sort of coming in and out of, and we can grow our own food and we can sell it and it'll all work out financially because we're so adorable and smart. And of course, we'll figure out a way to make it work. I say that a bit tongue in cheek because you'll see it's been sort of a long, winding road from there. But actually, in the lower left-hand corner, you see like about a year after that first visit, we came back to a conference at Isabella Freeman where we did, this is, you can see, this is us basically doing a proto version of the presentation we're giving to you now, before we had even, when all this was really just a dream and we had sort of just begun acquiring the land, and we were presenting to this group of young Jews who were, again, really jazzed about it, talked to us about visiting, excited, and also on the top here, this guy sitting next to me at this presentation is a man named Aharon Ariel Levi, who's Israeli and has formed
He's a mover and shaker in the world of Jewish intentional communities. He is inspired by kibbutzim and moshav and the moshav model, and believes that that should be applied here in the United States for Jewish communities to thrive. And he will come back later. He makes we were inspired by him, and he'll come back a little later in the presentation.
yes.
So then I titled this slide Happy Anarchy. What happens next? I didn't come up with that phrase Happy Anarchy, but it fit. I was reading an original, a primary source about the Alliance Colony. This is from the Sun in 1890. And there's this little blurb at the beginning: Russian Jews trying a new occupation in New Jersey. Will they make farmers? It says. The story of an interesting experiment. 120 Jewish families escaping from persecution form a farming colony. Irksome at first, but great progress made. They live in happy anarchy and have only once invoked the law. Will the other Russian Jews do as well? Other colonies, not so successful. What is happy anarchy? Well, I think we learned firsthand what it is. It's basically when you get a bunch of like clever, underemployed Jewish young people together at a farm, happy anarchy ensues. And so I picked this picture of like, we had some guests and everyone was like a friend from Brooklyn or growing up, and we're hanging out on this farm and like drinking homemade brews, and you know, everyone was having a fun time, but we were not really farming. And I
just type here before you show that clip a little context. Yeah, so we started this we started this process of acquiring all the land. We decided we were going to
I don't like saying acquiring because it sounds like we were like these moguls, but
right.
For all the farmland we have, we could possibly buy a small 1-bedroom studio in Brooklyn. It's not very valuable, but it's expansive. And for us, it was our life savings to make the decision to invest in that instead of a bigger apartment for our growing family. And
so the whole time we were sort of like, our goal is to make something here that's going to be beautiful and interesting and fun, but also make something that's going to be financially successful so we can support ourselves and support the project doing this. And again, we sort of had this feeling of like, if we build it, they will come, and somehow it'll turn into something that is self-supporting. Because there were all these people from Isabella Freeman, from these other farms, from the city, young Jews who were like, we want to come see a farm. We want to come stay on a farm. So we started to host these people coming down.
It was around then that we decided, like our ancestors, we need the support of a philanthropy to help us with this. And so Malya, in her lawyerly way, helped us form a 501c3 nonprofit organization where we could justifiably and rightfully accept the support of people like the former Baron de Hirsch, who were interested in seeing this succeed. And without their help, we wouldn't have come, I believe, as far as we have successfully today. But back then, it was like we were floundering.
We were just trying to invite as many people as we could to come and check it out, and trying to learn and hope that sort of eventually that would all turn into a plan that made sense.
We have a clip.
Yeah.
This is what happened, Farmer Bros. This is what happens when a bunch of Jewish underemployed guys get together at a farm, and we've had some drinks and stuff. And here, this is This is a manure spreader that we got. Someone told us all we need is a manure spreader to like solve all our problems.
It's okay. It won't go too far.
Move that hatch there, that ramp. Get Ben, big strong guys.
That's right, yeah. No.
Nady, pleased with the results.
Very. Really? Ready for a combine.
You feel like you're in Brooklyn?
I'm a fucking farmer, bro. Acre Farms Reboot, man. Acre Farms Reboot.
All right, there. That's essentially what our first few years of
That encapsulates it well, I think.
we're
We
taking,
didn't know what we
jerking
were doing.
around
Yeah,
with
yeah.
farm equipment.
Yeah.
And I imagine the reason I included that is I imagine it was very similar in 1882 with some Jews getting off a boat and having never touched any equipment.
Doing, they were just dropped off. It was like, you live here now, go farm.
Famously, they received support from the Italian farmers, neighboring farmers, who were already established as farmers, and they still own much of the neighboring land. And everyone was very, according to the anecdotes you can read, were very helpful.
But also, I don't know if you were saving this for later, but like in those letters that you found from your grandfather, with your grandfather corresponding with Leopold Gershel,
I don't know if I was.
that he kept saying, it seemed like it was this like Moses Bayek would say like, you know, can you help us out? They would speak much more in a much more flowery sort of formal way, but basically Moses Bayek would say, can you help us out? We need to get, this done or that done. And like Leopold Gershel would respond like, you guys still need more money down there? Like, I already sent you this and this and this, and I funded this. And Moses Bayek was like, yeah, we could just use a little more help, if you like, just to get us over this hump. And it seemed like it was like, all right, like it was clear that I think Leopold Gershel respected Moses Bayek, but he was sort of like skeptical of like, when is this endeavor going to move past nonprofit, which is very similar to the questions we are asking ourselves today.
Right. Like, was this really a successful farm?
If they
Debatable.
Right. If they could never survive beyond, without that largesse of other people.
And I don't know, that kind of brings us to a next chapter where we got a lot of publicity for our work, which was helpful and encouraging, and it led to other opportunities for actual productive projects that did good for people in the form of charity and community building. But this is one of the earliest endeavors we had where we met Nate Kleinman, who we lovingly call our hipster Jewish farmer. And he came down and used some of our land to grow experimental heirloom seeds, like sorghum is one of his favorites. And it sounds like unique and modern, but looking back at the 1880s, there was an old farm back then called the experimental farm. And I imagine it was just as unproductive as our own. But this is from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Side note, I'm wearing the hat of a trespasser who broke into our house shortly after we bought it. It was my grandparents' house, but we didn't inherit it. We had to buy it back. And the boyfriend of the former owner broke in the house for some reason, and the police came and tackled him, and he left his hat behind, and I'm wearing it like a trophy there.
William was really getting into the farm.
I was really embracing, my roots.
Exactly.
Following the hipster project, we dabbled for a year in trying to reboot the poultry industry. We met our friend who Yedidia Greenberg, who was born in Israel and had an interesting theory and a business idea. And that, can you tell it?
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, Yedidia is very passionate about poultry, and specifically his idea
American
heritage poultry. So the typical chicken that we all, and this is a whole presentation in and of itself, but essentially what I understand is that the chicken that we eat today, that most people call chicken, is a cross of many different types of chickens that have been bred to create like the biggest, fattest, most delicious, quickest to slaughter chicken possible. And it has a lot of different breeds in there. And as a result, apparently there have been some small religious communities in Israel and in New York who believe that chicken actually may not be a kosher animal, kosher bird, because it may
Modern chicken.
what we call chicken and what we eat as chicken may not actually be the chicken that's in the Bible, because it's been inbred with so many other different types of versions of birds that it might actually not be kosher, and that we should only be eating heritage breeds of chicken, which are sort of the original
Lineage, yeah.
lineages of these different birds that are not these inbred Cornish cross chickens. And so Yedidia had this idea. It's very rare to be raising these birds for slaughter. In fact, the picture in the bottom right, the guy on the left wearing the tan jacket, his name is Frank Reese. He's well known among circles of people who care about this as basically the only person who raises heritage poultry for meat in the whole country. And Yedidia was his like protege, and was interested in creating a farm where he would be raising these heritage breed chickens and having them kosher slaughtered. He actually is a shochet. He performs kosher slaughter of animals and sell them to the Jewish community, to people who need them as the only kosher, quote, kosher chickens, but also to the general public because they're healthier birds, etc. So
long story short,
yes,
that didn't work out.
Right.
Sorry. We learned a lot about chickens in that year and a half, but it didn't turn into a profit. Nope. That's my slide.
Oh.
Big no. So now we're getting into some more recent projects that we worked with. These are our neighbors, the Barty family, on Gershel Avenue, just 6 doors down. Joe, the patriarch in the middle, is an old-time farmer from the South, and has been farming since he was young, in the probably 50 years now. And we had worked very hard, swayed by the progressive modern Jewish farm movement, to transition our farmland to be organic. So we let our land lie fallow for 36 months without production, without synthetic chemicals or substances, so that we could be organic and friendly, eco-friendly.
The land was being leased to a farmer who farms a lot in the area. That field of corn that you saw me standing in at the beginning. And so we asked him if he'd be interested in doing organic, but he said no. So
no, and we thought if we make an organic farm, we're going to get a lot of people interested. That turned out not to be the case. No one wanted to farm, but our neighbors, the Bartys, were willing to try. So we formed a relationship with our neighbors, which is one of the best things you can do biblically and strategically. And they've been farming our land now going on 6 years. And one of the projects we worked on together was a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. The first year, we sold limited special produce to people in South New Jersey. Didn't get a lot of interest. Just last year, 2023, we rebooted the project with the help of EJF Philanthropies, Emmanuel J. Friedman Philanthropies, and Emmanuel's niece, Simone, who generously sponsored a CSA in Philadelphia. And there we got quite a few more subscribers, and we were able to bring produce grown on the historic Jewish family farmland in South New Jersey and sell it through a Black restaurateur and chef's new restaurant venue. His name is Omar Tate, and his restaurant is Honeysuckle, and we formed the Honeysuckle Acre CSA. And it was very well received. We weren't able to do it this year, but maybe in the future. So that's one of the first successful projects that we've had where it did good for everyone. You want to introduce this one? This was another good project.
Yeah, so we this view that you can see, so like you saw in those photos, all the major sort of places in this little Disneyland of Alliance Colony, if you will, are all right next to each other. So this is the backyard of the Moses Bayek house, that dilapidated house structure you saw, and also right next door to the farmhouse that we stay in, William's grandparents' house, and it's right next to the cemetery. So what we decided to do was create this, what we call a historic model farm, because always, people, when you typically, if you'll hear a more typical historical presentation about the Alliance Farms community, there's not so much emphasis on what they were actually growing. People talk about the immigration, they talk about the community structure, they talk about the different figures of note, they talk about the synagogue, but no one really talks about what were they farming. And so we were like, we're going to do a little digging. We're going to
Don't say what that is, by the way. I want to see if
got it.
Yeah.
We're going to research what did they grow? What did they process? What were the actual farm products? And we're going to create a little mini model farm that's going to be a tribute and an educational opportunity, really, where when people come on tours, and even when people come to the cemetery to visit relatives, they'll see this living model garden farm right next door and be able to come visit and come learn about the roots and why they're there and what was going on there. So this is us having an event where we hosted people come and help us plant. It's really become like a community garden in a way, because different local community members have contributed things to it.
it was sponsored by the Salem County, New Jersey State Council and New Jersey Historic Commission and Salem County through a grant for history. I wanted to see, so we have plants there. This is a historic plant for Alliance Colony. Does anyone, you want to raise your hand if you know what that plant is? Any gardeners recognize it? It has to do with the history of Alliance Colony. And I don't know if I would see people raising hands, but reward yourself if you knew that those are tobacco plants. And that's our friend Nicholas Messiano Jr., and he grows tobacco in South New Jersey. It's a very conducive environment and soil for it. Tobacco was one of the first crops, I believe, grown, definitely processed in Alliance Colony, just down the road. In fact, it's so important to my family. The legend is, and I believe it's true, my great uncles, Max, Mayer, and Sam Bayek, Moses Bayek's three of his sons. He had many sons. He had his first kid when he was 14, I learned. That's crazy, because I had my first kid when I was 43 or something like that. But they learned tobacco. They left Norma as teenagers. They left Alliance as teenagers, went to New York City, worked in tobacco factories, and then moved to Philadelphia. And they started Bayek Brothers Cigars eventually, and it became one of the biggest cigar brands it became the biggest cigar brand in America. It became then known as Philadelphia Cigars, and if you've ever heard of the Philly Blunt, that was the Bayek brothers. Those were my great uncles, and that is tobacco you're looking at. It has a beautiful flower too. Those flowers are not; those are zinnias, but the green plants are tobacco. So that still exists. That's a great project. Third project that we worked on is the Alliance Historic Model Farm. When we submitted our proposal for the garden, we had mentioned potentially doing grapes. Salem County was very interested in seeing us pursue that. And so with their help again, just last year, we were able to, and with the help of a benefactor, some friends who remain mostly anonymous, we were able to install about a ½ acre of vineyard on one of the farmlands, one of the properties right next to our house. That bottom left photo is a photo from around the year 1900 of my own great-great-grandfather growing his own grapes. Great-great-grandfather. The lower right is on the man on the right is Eli Sillins. He's a vintner, a kosher vintner in Philadelphia. He has a kosher wine business called Kamuna Cellars. Try it out if you want to try something interesting. It's a very it's a new kind of, or not new, but a kind of wine that is gaining popularity. It's unfined. There is some sediment in it.
It's called natural wine.
Natural wine. I like it a lot. Some of it is more effervescent than you might expect it to be. I think it's great. We are working with him to hopefully have a label and bottle for grape wine when it's done in another 2 or 3 years. Halachically,
Halachically, you're supposed to wait at least 3 years to harvest any new trees or vines that you grow. But that's easy with grapes because you really don't get a full harvest of grapevines for at least 3 years, usually not until the fourth year. So this season is our second season. So we're excited about this project. It's still sort of cooking, so to speak, but it also, it's another part of education while hopefully creating something productive.
You are all welcome to come join us. We'll share a link for events. And some of them are a little quick tour and discussion on this little vineyard here. And by the way, the guy on the left is Lazer Mishlovin, Eli's buddy, who we became friendly with, and then through just a series of connections is now the Shabbos rabbi for the Sons of Jacob Shul in East Vineland, who needed a rabbi. Our friend, sadly, Rabbi Rappaport, who was the Chabad rabbi there, Shalicha for many years, died just over a year ago. And Rabbi Lazer Mishlovin is helping to fill in. So all these little connections happening through our work. We really are pleased with that. And I mentioned events. We've been hosting, these are pictures from, I think, Rosh Hashanah with the apples. Arthur Kurzweil, my father-in-law, Malya's father, Abba, is on the left. One of our board members, Howard, there, pumping fists with Malya's friend Daniela. This is like, we host all these nice events, and
Yeah.
maybe you can join us for some. We'll be next to it. We're actually going down for Pesach for to have a limited Seder with as many community members as we could fit and afford, with support from Hakel and Adama. And in addition to events, we've hosted Shabbatonim, Shabbat weekends, many with young Jewish single people, and many of them, interestingly, coming from religious communities in Brooklyn, upstate New York, Lakewood, New Jersey, looking for something different. And we have this intriguing backdrop of historic, of spirit, of Judaism and survival that people are drawn to and come for weekends, sometimes in tents, sometimes in a sukkah like the bottom right, sometimes all hanging out, building garden beds like the bottom left. It's been fun. And a few shidduchim have been made, a few matches with people getting together.
And then just noteworthy, the picture on the top left is the sukkah erected on the grounds of the synagogue, which is the building in the backdrop. We did wind up getting into that synagogue that was mysterious all those years ago, and it was just as beautiful on the inside, mostly due to our friend Howard Jaffe, who's the longtime caretaker, who's sort of
There's Howard.
There's Howard. He's now on the board of Acre, but he is one of the few old-time Jewish farmers who stuck around. He lives right around the corner from our house on his family's family farmland, and he had been caring for that synagogue when the membership dwindled to zero, basically, and we're just meeting once a year for high holidays. And he was, we were thrilled to meet him. He was thrilled to meet us. It was like kindred spirits, and now we are regularly meeting in that synagogue.
Yep. Others who have helped us along the way, Aaron Muller on the left with the mushroom. He's a mycologist and master gardener. Gail Reichman has her own chicken farm in the area. Others are not pictured by preference. And also our friend Dan Pelberg, who is with his ancestor, Isaac Krasenstein. And I want to show you something. So on the left is Moses Bayek's memorial stone, and on the right is Isaac Krasenstein's memorial stone. And when we were at Isabella Freeman, we met Dan. We were talking to him about the Alliance Colony, and he said, I think I might be a descendant of the Alliance Colony. Remember our friend Aharon Ariel Levy, the Israeli who was founding Jewish intentional communities? he came and visited and supported a weekend event that we had through his nonprofit work. And listen to what he says. It's pretty cool.
So here we have the grave of William Levin's, one of his grandfathers, Moses Bayuk, who was a descendant of the Vilna Gaon. Okay, see, Harav Gaon, Rabbeinu Eliyahu Zatzal Vilna, very, very famous Jewish figure. Now, next to him, we see the grave of Yitzchak ben Nachman Krasenstein Breslev, okay, of Breslev. So he was named, his father was named after Nachman of Breslev, and this Nachman's father, his name was also Isaac, actually. Chaim, sorry, his name was Chaim Krasenstein. And he has a very interesting story. He used to give 10% of his money to charity, to the Breslev institutions. Then he started giving 20%. Then he went to Uman, to Rosh Hashanah, and he was convinced by the Hasidim to give 50% of his income. He was a very wealthy Jew. And after he started giving 50%, he started making even more money. And then his descendants took this money, somehow transformed it into gold, and made Aliyah to New Jersey, and became some of the founders of the Alliance Colony. That's what it was called in the beginning. Now we call it the Alliance Community Reboot. And Dan, who is here, so he's a descendant of this Yitzchak ben Nachman Krasenstein, like 5 generations back, 5 generations. And William is a descendant of Bayuk, who's from the Vilna Gaon. And those two guys are buried one next to another. And historically, that's very interesting because the Vilna Gaon was also part of the Hasidim. And now his descendants are buried one next to each other. And 5 generations later, their descendants are actually building a community together, revitalizing a hectare Jewish community here in South New Jersey. So, Shabbat everybody. They want to say something?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful story, and I love being a part of this community, and hopefully we're building something for the future.
Shabbat everybody.
That was great. And in the end, if you want to explain the Vilna Gaon and Hasidism.
Oh, yeah,
very
sure. So
quickly.
just that Moses Bayek is descended from the Vilna Gaon, who's known as sort of the primary opponent of the Hasidic movement when it began in the 1700s. He opposed Hasidism and thought it was, just bad movement.
Violently,
Yeah,
we're told.
he put them in. He excommunicated the leaders of the Hasidic movement. He was really against it. And Isaac Krasenstein, who you saw is buried right next to Moses Bayek, the descendant of the Vilna Gaon, was a descendant, was a Chassid who was from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who was actually the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, who was the founder of the Hasidic movement. So
They would have been enemies.
these two ideologically opposed enemies from the 1700s, their descendants end up in New Jersey building a community together and then interred right next to each other. And then their descendants end up finding each other
And
at the
becoming BFFs,
and becoming
best
buddies.
friends.
You can
Very-
see here's us. This is Dan and his wife and their daughter hanging out with us and our kids. We're celebrating Shabbat together. We're doing it all.
That's crazy.
So we thought that it all came together.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That was a good explanation. Speaking of coming together, we've come basically because we need to end soon, I think, and then have time for questions. I'm going to do my grandfather's voice again. The Alliance Colony will long be remembered, first and foremost, for its success as the first all-Jewish agricultural settlement in the United States, founded by a group of real pioneers who left the country of their birth because of persecution, came to a new country without means for money, without knowing the language, and despite many hardships, trials, and tribulations, and never having been farmers, had the strength, perseverance, and perseverance, not perseverance, I wouldn't have done that, I know. Yeah. And courage to make their dreams and ideals come true. Judge I. Harry Levin, that's my, I messed that one up, but it was
How we relate to this? We relate to this one because we feel like we're like that too. We weren't farmers and we've had plenty of trials and tribulations in our own right, but you've seen sort of us struggling through and trying to create something lasting.
If you like that, you're gonna love this transition.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. There we are. There's the Alliance Community Reboot. That's our logo. The A is a trowel, which is a little shovel, if you can dig it. And those berries are some of the wild black raspberries that grow on the sides of the roads and in the fields, probably a result of berries, which were some of the crops that were grown in 1882 by my family and others that were there. Do we have any parting wisdom or thoughts to share? I mean,
Well, it's on the eve of Passover, so
Yeah.
we feel the Passover story is very relevant to obviously our own ancestors' exodus from Odessa, from Russia, fleeing their own Egypt, their own trials and tribulations to make a new life for themselves. And I think what's interesting is like noteworthy is that the Jewish people, it didn't take them 40 years to get through the desert. They could have traversed the desert very quickly and gotten to Israel in a matter of weeks. God had them wander in the desert for 40 years to sort of reboot themselves and take on a new mentality, shed the trappings of slavery and become free people who could enter the land of Israel and create a new society there. And I feel like, analogously, this was sort of their desert this was our ancestors' desert that they entered into. They were fresh off this, horrible persecution in Tsarist Russia, and they really had to remake themselves and remake their way of thinking and their culture and their community, but keep their Jewish ideals and to set themselves up for launching as successful people in the new world. And for us, that's also meant a return to this land and this farming, but in a hopefully with a new twist. So,
and if you like that, if you want to hear more about it tonight, kind of coincidentally, but mostly because it's Pesach, and we've invited our friend, the real genealogist, Jarrett Ross, to come be with us for the Seders. And since he's there, he said, maybe I'll do a presentation. So he's going to give a real heavy genealogy class tonight live, not on Zoom. You're very close. It's right in South New Jersey. You could probably make it down there before we could, definitely. We're going to leave in about an hour. But at 7 p.m. tonight, if you can take a break from cleaning and
anyone
preparing.
who's local.
Yeah, local, come. It's a free class. I'm going to get off this page now, but if you see at the bottom, we have our email addresses and request for donations. You can support the work we're doing. But I'm going to get off this frame, but you can go tonight, and we would see you there tonight at the shul. You can go to our website, acreboot.org, to look up the time and the address.
And if you're not local, you can also sign up for our newsletter there.
Yeah.
We send out regular updates, but thank you so much for having us. This was really fun.
I'm going to stop sharing so that we can go back to, yeah, we're back. Thank you, guys.
And you did a wonderful job for us today. And I know that I will make a donation on behalf of the JGS of Southwest Florida.
Thank you.
And we've got a lot of people in this room who have close connections to the Alliance Colony. I didn't know if any of them wanted to share their connections. If you want to, please do. Just raise your hand if you want to. Bonnie?
Guys.
You have to unmute, Bonnie.
Excuse me, sure. So I was born in 1946, and we had relatives who had a chicken farm, chicken and eggs in Toms River. And as a young child, I went there. I remember going to visit the chicken farm, and I was one of 16 first cousins. I'm the youngest of all of them. Not too many of us still here. But I remember being there. I remember some body of water that we would sort of hang out around. And as I said, I was pretty young at the time. There's a lot more that I could share, but for the sake of this time frame, I think that's probably enough, right? Do you want more? It seems like it's okay. I'm curious though, where is it going? Because I lived in Spain for many years, and since I'm back, about 2 years now, I have not found my place. I'm still based in New Jersey because that's where my eldest son lives with his family, but I am still have not found my place since I'm back. And I'm trying to figure out where that's going to be. I would like to stay in New Jersey. At the moment, I'm in Nevada helping a dear friend transition, but where is it going?
That's a great question, and it's one we ask ourselves every day. And you're not alone in having this feeling that you might like to return or come back or be a part of it. We've noticed there's a trend when we host an event or when we talk like this. There's a flurry of interest, and if people come to the farm and stay for a night or for Shabbat, they are intoxicated by the bucolic nature and spirit and celebration, and want to move there with us. And that's the way we felt initially too. But then reality hit, and we realized we have to maintain a farm property and a house and pay taxes that are high and fill out applications for farmland assessment and be far from our careers and have kids we had to get a new car to fit our family in a Honda Pilot Touring 2019 edition. Like it became really expensive. And then we started like dissuading people from immediately buying real estate next to us, counting on us being there forever. We imagine that we will hold on to our assets and property. We were told by very wise people, including my own family, if you have land, you should keep it. So we have it. It's only going to go up in value, but that makes it easier for us as landowners to stay there. But probably in the future, maybe we will retire there and spend more time there. For now, look, I'll give you a quick tip. You could throw a rock in that town and hit a foreclosure and buy a house for like 1/4 of its value.
But also, that's true.
It's one of the most economically depressed counties in the United States. And
Lots of mosquitoes.
that's Rich Brown. Hi, Rich. There's the mosquitoes there too, but don't let, they're in Florida too, and everyone's going to
But
Florida.
also, there's no active plan at the moment for like expanding a residential community there.
We are the
Okay.
exception to the intentional community model, where they said, okay, so you're not planning on like owning
Co-housing. Yeah.
and housing. A more realistic project that not only we, but other families there are looking at is the Airbnb model, moving it more into bungalow style experiences. So if we had to tell you what we predict what might happen, it's that where people come for part-time experiences.
Like a vacation type thing.
Vacations. That's our
Okay.
most realistic future.
I have one more comment,
Yes.
brief. So you said it was good for growing tobacco. Have you considered growing marijuana? That's certainly a cash crop these days. And if the land was good for tobacco, it's probably good for that too. It's legal in New Jersey, so and I'll sign off. That's my last comment.
No, that's a great
Mhm.
suggestion. And off the record, so remember I mentioned the Philly blunts, the product of my great uncles, the cigar. So modernly, urban culture has taken the Philly blunt. If you Google it, you will see that the blunt is now known in urban and like hip hop culture as being tobacco mixed with marijuana in the original wrapper of
Wow.
Philadelphia cigar. We've definitely thought about it, and I can tell you that, so like a friend down the street here in Brooklyn had a legit high CBD hemp farm in North Carolina and gave me like some seeds to try. So I put them in a bucket and grew a few, and it grew these like 7 feet tall plants that were high CBD. Allegedly you cannot get stoned from them, but they have wellness products and they are legal, but you need a license for it.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
To jump to the end, yes, you can. It's conducive quality soil down there. It's something we would explore. It's very expensive to get into, and there's a lot of politics, but
And a lot of regulation.
but certainly it would be a fun lucrative, possibly twist on an old tradition of the Alliance colony? Thank you for that question.
Can I say something?
Emily? Oh, no, well, let's go Rich and then Emily.
Yeah, hi. My name is Rich Brotman. Apparently, my great grandfather Abraham Brotman and William's ancestor Moses Bayuk prowled around there. There was the Jacob Schiff Foundation, and somehow connected my great grandfather, who had a clothing factory in Brooklyn, to bring it down to one lot. This was a few years after they were there for a couple of years, and with that factory, there was electricity and there was something to carry the colonists over. And that was one of the contributing factors to the success of the colony, was this, trying to work a bridge of some industrialization, modernization in with their traditional religious and cultural life at this particular time. So it's a number of forces that came together that made it survive, but that's what helped it survive. And I think the fact that the story obviously resonates in many levels today, and the fact that there is a presence there that has been consistent of Jewish, individualism and reassessment and reinvention, that's what would actually continue to be some kind of a research center or something with the tourism. There's lots of things that can make it happen, but it is a solution for a good way of modern living. And that's what this whole story kind of is a allegory to, and a key to some actual wisdom on how to live, and how to live Jewishly, and how to live in modernity. So that my involvement in it, my father told me, in 1980, I just was in film school, graduate film school at Temple and film. I didn't know what to do. He said, go down there and shoot some pictures. They're going to sell the Brotmanville. The Brotmanville Synagogue is going to become a Baptist church, and they're taking all the artifacts out to move to the Hever Kadisha and the cemetery. So, go out there and shoot it. And so I went out there and met Jay Greenblatt, who was also a descendant of an original pioneer. And from that day, meeting the people that still lived there, like Jake Healy and some other people, I was able to get on videotape at the time that generation's firsthand account of their living memory of their grandparents coming over in the early days. So there's a lot of history and factual information, and I put the documentaries up for, it's freely available. It's on Venmo. You just put in my name, Vimeo, Rich Brotman, or first chapter in a new book, or Brotmanville. It'll show up. There's an hour-long version and a 10-minute version, and you can just see the basic lay of the land, which is what oh gosh.
I found that picture.
Yeah, there's my father. My father was Stanley Brotman, and his father, Herman Brotman, my grandfather, was big friends with Judge Levin. And he was one of the first people that I interviewed in making the documentary and finding out a little more about what really had happened. And this will be my great grandfather, Abraham Brotman, who brought the factory down and was involved in setting up the synagogue with Moses Bayuk and such. His father's name was Moses. So that's where the story begins for me. I grew up at 8 miles away before moving to Philadelphia. And
I'm like a DJ here. I'm showing images that I have. This is a deed with Abraham Brotman.
I didn't even know that's far out. There's so much still to be seen.
I have these, Rich, because my family helped maintain these deeds. So
that's amazingly cool. So
Yeah.
all these, histories are intertwined, and follow the genealogy of it, and it is truly amazing. There's footage, from the 100-year ceremony in 1982, from 1880 to celebrate 100 years, 150 years, and all that. Fortunately, is probably housed at Stockton University in their Alliance Heritage Center.
Right.
So they have all my footage, and they have other people's footage. So there's a lot for the curious to find their way back to those roots.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, and Rich we've become friends as I have been with others through genealogical connections.
Because it's work that has to be done and has to continue. There's no monetary reason for any of it. It's hard to even describe why it's important, but I thought the whole story was done with, by the time, before I'd met William. And when I met William, it's like, well, the story is just actually beginning. So
Hey, Rich, if you want to come for the Seder's, like I said, you like sleeping on that porch in the nature. You can commune.
I appreciate it. I'm Sedering in place in New York this time, but I hope to be out there soon. Because I
Okay.
love it there. It's incredibly peaceful and it's very grounding experience.
All right, cool. See you soon.
Right.
Person.
Emily.
I am the granddaughter of Morris Sereda, and the Seredas were a huge family in Bridgeton. My grandfather was the youngest of 10 children, and they came, my sister's on here. She might remember the year Isaac Sereda was the patriarch. And Rich is shaking his head, so he remembers the Seredas. And they are all in Alliance Cemetery, as well as many cousins, the Kirstenbaums, lots of different offspring, relatives and offspring from all those 10 children. I don't know, Lisa, do you want to chime in?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Not really. I just, our grandparents and, well, really the 10 siblings, continued the farm history by owning a farm implement business in Bridgeton, New Jersey.
The farm supplies.
Farm supply.
And equipment.
Sereda and Sons. And that's what they did the rest of their lives.
Common, yeah. Great, nice to meet you both.
Now, Sonia, did you want to, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but Sonia, did you want to share any of the things that you were telling me in the chat? Did you want to?
Oh, my mom.
Sounds like she's frozen.
My mom looks frozen. She's not usually that cold.
Okay.
But I think I got some of those things. Oh, one of them is that there's an anecdote that Moses Bayek was friends with Leo Tolstoy, the famous author, who gave him the heads up that as a Jew he should leave sooner than later.
I thought it was like they would play cards.
They would play
Your
cards.
grandfather
Yeah.
tells the story
It's like the
in
equivalent of playing
Rich's
dreidel.
footage. But I thought it was more like Leo Tolstoy kept losing at cards, and I think maybe as some kind of a payment, like he couldn't pay, and he was like, instead of payment, here's a tip, get out of here. Like it was sort of like, you should go. So I think that's what
That's
Sonia
one of the
was
things.
referencing.
Yeah. Mom. Yep. We'll see you. We'll see you later this evening.
Yeah.
Now, William, besides thanking you for speaking, I thank you for spreading the word to your family and friends for coming today.
You're welcome. Yeah, that was great. We'd love to do it again sometimes now that we are polished, I think.
You did a great job. It looks like you've done this many times before for genealogy groups.
Never, but we know a few good genealogists.
We do.
Great.
I really want to thank you. I mean, it was just wonderful. I'm sorry I had to go off for a few minutes, but my family name, I didn't give it there. The connection was Cass, Pearl Cass, and they were in Tom's River, and it was a chicken and egg farm. So I don't know if anybody remembers them, but that was the family name that got us there.
We get a lot of visitors from Tom's River. There's a religious community there of young from Jewish adults, professionals who come for weekends. Usually when we're not there, someone else helps us with those weekends. But Tom's River.
I'm sorry, the Casses at that time were not at all religious. They were the most secular of the whole extended family. And I have wonderful memories, and I'm thrilled that you're doing this, and thank you for a great presentation.
Thanks. Keep in touch.
Okay.
Well, I guess that'll conclude. I thank everybody for coming, and I wish everybody a happy Passover, and we'll be back meeting in the JGS in November. Thank you.